Okay, so now we pick up where we left off. Last video, I was in the series, I was looking at David Bowie's chart, and we went through most of it. Didn't cover all the outer planets, but we covered how his ascendant is in this very special spot at the end of at the beginning of Shravana, at the end of a hidden nakshatra called Abhijit, and in the middle of Capricorn. And then his moon and Saturn are the rulers of his chart in Pusha, in Cancer, where it's very moody, emotional, other focused, as well as internalized, emotional, and masterful in understanding limitations. And then some other things around transformation and sensuality and et cetera, et cetera. There's even more here we didn't cover, but I want to jump into looking at some of his music birth charts. So starting with Space Odyssey, we actually have this, we have the Ascendant together with four other things in Uttara Falguni. And the Ascendant is at the very end of that sequence of four things. So that sequence goes from Pluto to K2, or the south node of the moon, to Jupiter and Uranus. So having Jupiter and Uranus in direct conjunction with the Ascendant anywhere in the chart is going to have a very explosive, powerful energy behind it, because Jupiter is going to be very fun and expansive. Uranus is explosive. So it's like putting like a bunch of colorful, smoke bombs on top of like a firework display or jet fuel. And then this is the thing that you're going to notice first about the song. It's this transformational, just wild, explosive song. And for his career, it certainly was. And yeah, and the significance of K2 and Pluto being there as well, there's an element of obsessiveness that comes from it, and an element of transformation that comes from it. David Bowie would be known for the rest of his career as a famous transforming artist that would constantly change his image and sound, reinvent himself time and time again, year after year, decade after decade. And so the Pluto really shows that is happening in this song already. In fact, it's Pluto in the 12th house at the very end of Leo. So there's something kind of about transformational about this song, because prior to this song, I mean, this was a song that made him really famous in the US, and it didn't get famous till a couple years later, I've learned, once he got some better US representation, I guess, is what I've heard. And then it became a top 10 hit or something like that 2 or 3 years later. But yeah, and it has, the part of fortune is in Maga, so there's success in its ability to just establish something new, something really powerful, because of this 12th house element. And Maga is more about it's just the sign of a king. So the song just kind of established David Bowie as a force to reckon with, and he never lost that king status in the 12th house of transformation, the transforming king. That could be a way of describing David Bowie as a whole that you could see in this song. And then the moon of the song's chart is in Rohini, and so in the 9th house with Venus. So moon and Venus together feels very moody, very well, the mind is on beautiful things, and Rohini is the sign of the divine feminine, and here in the 9th house, which is about spiritual matters and the law and travel to distant places. And so, this song that's about going to the moon, and it's really expressing the beauty of a trip to the moon. I mean, that's, it's inspired by the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. And so having the moon and Venus together in Rohini in the 9th house, where they're traveling somewhere very distant, to find something that's very beautiful. And that's kind of what the song is. It's the beauty of the moon, and the mind of the song is in this feminine spaciousness and beauty. Like femininity itself, in principle, the energy of it is very spacious. And so the moon in Rohini And Rohini is ruled by the moon. And the song is literally about going to the moon. Okay, so there you go. The moon is in a moon-ruled nakshatra of Rohini, the Indian sign of Rohini, called a nakshatra. And Venus is there too. So it's this beautiful experience on the moon. You know, that's really out in space. That's really it. Simple as that. Let's see, Saturn in Bharani. There's some mysteries being discovered in the eighth house that are kind of heading towards the end of something, the end of an era in Bharani. At the beginning of Bharani, there's something transitioning, and there's some understanding of the changing of the times, of things, people going to the moon. And David Bowie as well transformed his image through the song and tapped into some mysterious kind of creative force, you could say, that never really left him the rest of his career. And the sun in Punar Vasu. This is another one of the most cosmic signs of the whole chart. So you have Lilith and Mercury and Ardra right on top of the midheaven in the 10th house. And then you have the sun in Punar Vasu, all of which are in Gemini in the 10th house. So Gemini is about working through things, figuring things out. And at the heart of at the most heated part of that, you have Mercury and Lilith in Ardra. So, I mean, Ardra would be the peak of that debate, that dialectic of Gemini, of working through ideas. And so having Mercury and Lilith, there's an energy of like intense debate and very intelligently communicated dialectic and debate that the song is known for. I mean, this song has multiple parts to it. That's something that comes to mind, because a debate or dialectic is always going to have distinct sides to it that are having a conversation. And in a way, the song it's like an early, it's really like an early example, now that I think of it, of a prog rock song, because it starts at one tempo and then it goes to a whole different tempo, at least one or two times in the song. And so this, in a way, is about like it feels like a conversation. It feels, I mean, there's literally a conversation. There's someone saying ground control to Major Tom, and they're talking to Major Tom. I can't remember if Major Tom himself has a voice in the song, but I'm pretty sure he does, or might. I don't want to slow down the video by looking that up right now. But, you know, if he does, then that would play into this too. And there's something, having the Lilith there, the Lilith, in a sense, is the Lilith on top of, it means there's going to be some real emotional energy put into the song. It's not just going to be a gimmicky exercise, because it was, in a way, a gimmicky song that was capitalizing on the fascination with the moon landing and the 2001: A Space Odyssey film at the time. But anyway, and then the sun in Punarvasu, it means the real heart of the song is in the deep spaciousness, and that the feeling that it really gives you is the deep sense of space that mirrors this moon's placement. Because Ardra, it's the exciting, energetic, combative part of the song, but Punarvasu is the more spacious, center of the song. And then, in fact, if we look at the ruler of the chart, it's a day chart, so the sun is the predominator of the chart. And so the song is really, the captain of the ship of the chart is this sun that is on the midheaven, and it's out in the heavens of the stars in Punarvasu. It's out on the moon, basically. It's out in space. Punarvasu, it really means space. It's ruled by the god of space, the goddess of space, Oddity. And so that's what the song, that's the predominator of the song. And then the ruler of that is Mercury, which is in this conversation, because sun is in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So the ruler of the chart is actually this Mercury that's in conjunction with the Lilith. So that 10th house, which is up on the heavens, it's out in space, and of course, then you also have the moon and Venus out in space, and the moon ruled Rohini. And then the ascendant in Uttara Falguni, where it has all this confidence and power, it's in Virgo, which is also a Mercury ruled sign. So the ruler of the ascendant is also Mercury. So really the song is about new ideas from Mercury and well communicated things that are in outer space because of that sun's location. You know, it's ideas of space that are really being well communicated. That's what this song is all about. It's kind of quite literal that we have the moon in a moon sign and the sun out in space. I mean, it doesn't really get much clearer than that. And the song's called Space Odyssey, and it's about going to the moon. So, all right. So from there, let's jump into Hunky Dory. That's his next thing I have pulled up here. And I'm a huge fan of this album. Gosh, I'm gonna be like an auctioneer in how fast I talk here, either way, we're probably gonna have a longer video, or I might cut this up to even a couple more videos. I don't know. But anyway, Hunky Dory, this album came out in 1971. I'm dating all these birth charts based on the album release date in either Los Angeles or London. In fact, I'm doing all of them in Los Angeles. I did the Space Odyssey single based in London because he wasn't that famous when that came out yet, so it probably would have been released there first, but it actually wouldn't have changed hardly anything regardless. So not that important. But okay, so we're looking at Hunky Dory now. This was an album, I consider this his first masterpiece, and I think this to this day is my favorite album of his. So let's just see what this album shows. So again, look at this. We have these strong placements on the midheaven. We have the sun and moon in direct conjunction right on top of the midheaven in the 10th house, also in a close conjunction with Jupiter of about 6 degrees, 5 degrees. So yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. So I almost want to look at that, but we always look at the ascendant first when we're reading a chart. So the ascendant has Mars and part of fortune right on top of it. Now, part of fortune is always going to be right on top of the ascendant when the sun and moon are in conjunction. And that sun and moon conjunction is also known as a new moon. In fact, let's see if it looks like the moon is ahead of the sun. It is. So there's something brand new going on here. Brand new. Like the moon is just 1 degree ahead of the sun or less on the midheaven. That's really such an incredible placement of those two planets. It's just unbelievable. And so let's get deeper into this. So the ascendant, Mars, part of fortune, and Chiron are all in Pisces. The ascendant is at the very end of Purva Bhadrapada. Let's just see. Yeah, very end of Purva Bhadrapada, and Mars is at also the end of Purva Bhadrapada. And part of fortune, I don't know if that's so important. You have to go all the way down here. Part of fortune is at 3 degrees and 12 minutes. Okay, where would that put it? That would put it 3 degrees and 12 minutes, still puts it in Purva Bhadrapada. So it doesn't change over until 3 degrees and 20 minutes. Then that's when it switches over to Uttara Bhadrapada, you can see here in the center of Pisces. So what does all that mean? So the ascendant is on, really on fire. Like this album is just really exciting because you have Mars energy, you have good fortune energy, you're in a very deep, mysterious side of a transformational process, because Purva Bhadrapada is a purifying transformational sign that takes place mostly at the end of Aquarius, and then at the last quarter of it, the last pada, as it's known as, takes place at the beginning of Pisces. And so all three of these things are happening at the beginning of Pisces, at the end of Purva Bhadrapada, and it's really indicating of just a huge excitement, a huge ambition, a deep transformation, and having great success with this transformation because of the part of fortune. I mean, really just, it's interesting that the idea of having a new moon actually would always give the ascendant a really great quality. And it makes me want to look more into what the ideas are of new moons. I mean, it's very good to start something new on a new moon. We could say that. And whether the moon is almost a new moon or already just a new moon, you're going to have that part of fortune on the ascendant, which is it's just another thing to consider if you think about these things. It's something to look into more deeply another time. And that Mars on top of the Ascendant means this album is just going to be very, very, very exciting and very ambitious, which it is. And yeah, I won't talk about Chiron too much there, but let's just jump to Sun and Moon. So Sun and Moon together in Mula. I mean, we would look at the Moon second, then the Sun, but since they're in conjunction, we're looking at a new moon where they're together. The beginning of Mula in the 10th house. So 10th house, again, is what something is known for and what it does in the world, you know, and the midheaven is also, it's emphasizing what something is known for in even more so, even more directly. And so having this album is known for just being a brand new age for music, a brand new age for David Bowie, you know, and his career. I mean, this is just a really, and having it be in Mula means you're like sort of going back to the basics, that you're just kind of getting to the core of something. And I'm trying to think, I'm actually not super familiar with all of his music that came prior, but you know, you could say that, or more specifically, I'm not super familiar with the whole Man Who Sold the World album. I know the song, and then I know Space Odyssey, and I've heard that album once, and I've heard his first album a few times. I'm not a big fan of it, and I've heard all his early stuff really, but none of it's stuck in my head, and all of it has something kind of, you could say, extra attached to it. Like Space Odyssey is a little gimmicky, and The Man Who Sold the World, I don't know, it's a good song, and so I can't really speak on that song or album too much, but this idea of the Sun and Moon being at the beginning of Mula, it really means that this album is starting something new, and it's going back to the basics of songwriting and I suppose invention of something new. And there's a lot of knowledge that it has an inspiration because of this Mercury and Jupiter together in Jayestha in the 9th house, and Neptune in Anuradha, which is imagination and inspiration, just like supercharged. And Jupiter, it sort of mirrors David Bowie's placement of Saturn with his moon in his chart. But yeah, this basically there's a lot of enjoyment through this minimalism and these limitations that are imposed on this album. I mean, at this time, I guess folk music was very popular in a minimal form. You know, you hear the bare, like sort of the prototype version of his next album, Ziggy Stardust, in one of the songs. The song, what's it called? I don't know. Is it Queen? I think it's called Queen Bitch, I think. But that song, it sounds a lot like what a lot of the songs in like Suffragette City, and what it has a similar energy to a lot of Ziggy Stardust. So there's something new being. It's just something new. It's something really exciting and new. I mean, I'm really just using a lot of words to say that's what this chart's saying. It's very clear about it too. And since it's a day chart and the sun is in the 10th house, sun becomes the predominator. So this is the most important planet in Mula. And then the ruler of the sun is Jupiter, which is this expansive understanding of, I guess, the law, because it's in the 9th house, but Scorpio is also very mysterious and deep and moody, and Jupiter is very expansive. And so Jupiter in the end of Jayestha, Jayestha is all about long-term planning, and so Jupiter has this enjoyment through a real vision, a real patiently thought out vision that's being well executed on this album. And yeah, I could go more into this, but I think I'll stop there. Just keep it moving. Because yeah, I also have pulled up the Life on Mars song. Oh, let's see. Yeah, well, a lot of this is going to be similar probably to the album because it came out around the same time. We have the Ascendant in Purva Falguni, another sign that's very ambitious, you know, and it would have trine relationship to some of David Bowie's placements in his 12th house in Purva Ashada, because those two signs are trine to each other. And yeah, so yeah, let's see. The song is ambitious. Okay. It's ruled by the sun. The ascendant's ruled by the sun, which is in the 11th house now, with Jupiter. The sun is in Ardra in conjunction with the south node of the moon, K2. Jupiter's in Marigasharsha. Yeah, well, this song, I mean, it has a similar theme, just if we think about it, to Space Odyssey. I mean, and then Ziggy Stardust as well. All of these have to do with outer space and science fiction. And then years later, David Bowie would star in the movie The Man Who Fell to Earth, or From Earth, The Man Who Fell to Earth. So again, you have Venus and Punar Vasu for life on Mars. So there's and Mercury at the very end of Punar Vasu. So that shows the sort of cosmic perspective of the song, looking down on humans. And then Venus is expressing the beauty of outer space with this song that you can see there. Then at the beginning of the 11th house in Gemini, you have Saturn and Marigasharsha. So Saturn would be very effective at gathering up lots of great ideas in Marigasharsha and knowing what to do with them. And Saturn in Gemini, it's going to be a little slowed down, but this stellium is just expressing something explosive, because then you have the sun in Ardra, and then K2, which is obsessive, the sun, which is the soul of the song. And so the deeper meaning of it, and it has this conflict. Ardra is all about conflict. The song is all about the conflict between people, basically. The conflict of humans on Earth. And this is why there's, this idea of, is there life on Mars? And in the music video for the song, David Bowie's dressed up as an alien, I suppose, before Ziggy Stardust even. And he's communicating, look at this, I mean, he literally says, look at how those cavemen go, what a show, do they know they're in the best-selling show? And so the obsessiveness of humankind arguing, basically, and fighting amongst themselves and just caught up in petty nonsense is what's communicated here by K2 and the sun in Ardra, because Ardra is symbolized by a storm, and it represents the most argumentative, heated part of Gemini, basically. And then if we go into, we skipped over the moon because we're already kind of jumping ahead to the ruler of, or the predominator of the chart is going to be the sun. I can already see that. And then the ruler of the chart is Mercury, which is this cosmic perspective at the end of Punar Vasu in Cancer. And from that perspective, there's this view of humans that's being communicated from a external, cosmic, spiritually elevated point of view. Then the moon is directly on the descendant, so the mind of the song. And look at this, so we have it in direct opposition with the ascendant because it's on the descendant, and both of them are in a Purva sign. And Purva is all about trying to get somewhere. So Purva Falguni is about it's very ambitious and trying to achieve something, basically, or traditionally it would be about trying to start a family. But if you interpret that in the context of a song, it just means you're trying to have a really breakthrough, exciting song. It's not a song that's copying a formula. It's trying to do something very ambitious and new at the end of Purva Falguni. And you can feel its ambition, really, because this is actually in some sense, the song is a remake of his of what became the song. He wrote a song called Even a Fool Falls in Love that he said in retrospect was horrible, but the song or he wrote lyrics to a piece of music called that. Can't remember if he wrote the original music. And then the song, somebody else wrote the same song or wrote lyrics to the same song, and they called it My Way, and that became like a #1 hit for Frank Sinatra. And at that time, David Bowie was totally unknown, and he was trying to make it as a songwriter. And he was really like bummed out and disappointed by that. And so then a couple years later, he wrote the song Life on Mars, which has a similar chord progression to My Way, he says. Um, and this, so there was something he wanted to prove. There was like a chip on his shoulder when he wrote this song. And so the Ascendant in Purva Falguni is very much has that energy of wanting to prove yourself and having that ambition as someone who's younger to try to achieve something. And then in opposition to that, you have the moon in Purva Bhadrapada, which I just talked about in one of the other recent readings for David Bowie. But Purva Bhadrapada is all about transformation, right? And yeah, I believe in his birth chart, he has a lot of things in the sun, in the 12th house. And you could see that in the earlier video on David Bowie. But yeah, that moon in Purva Bhadrapada means the song is transformational. It's very effective at being transformational, and it's connecting with other people in the 7th house in that way. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to stick to the big three and whatever else is in close conjunction, really, for this, so we can just move quickly through all these different Bowie releases. And feel free to skip ahead if you want to get to the album you're more interested in. I'm not going to cover all his albums. So now I have yet to cover Ziggy Stardust, Low, Heroes, the song, Scary Monsters, Let's Dance, and Black Star. So now we're up to Ziggy Stardust. And I may break this up into 2 videos. We'll see. But let's see. Ziggy Stardust has its Ascendant in Purva Falguni once again. Okay, interesting. Is that a coincidence, or are a lot of these going to be in Purva Falguni? Now I'm curious if this is just a time of day thing. No, it's not. Low's in a different time, and yeah, and even actually, yeah, I shouldn't think that, because yeah, well, oh, this is really interesting. So because Hunky Dory had the placement in Purva Bhadrapada, not David Bowie's chart. Okay, what was David Bowie's chart in? No, his was in Purva Ashada. Okay, I'm not too far off. So, all right. Anyway, these are all different ideas, but all of these Purva placements. So now Ziggy Stardust says it's Ascendant in Purva Falguni. Purva is all about trying to get somewhere. I mean, Purva. There's 3 Purvas in the. And Purva, I believe, in Sanskrit means before. So it's before Falguni, which means before the fruit. And before Purva Ashada, which is down here, that means before victory. And then Purva Bhadrapada, I forget what Bhadrapada means literally, but this is kind of like the transformational before enlightenment, or before this like total purification transformation process has yet been completed. And it's symbolized by a fire dragon, but those are not relevant to this chart. So Ziggy Stardust starts with Purva Falguni, which is the one we just looked at for the Life on Mars chart. It's the same ascendant. So this is carrying forward a similar energy on the surface as Life on Mars. And in fact, if you think about Life on Mars, there's a song, in my opinion, the catchiest song on Ziggy Stardust is Starman, which is very similar in a way to Life on Mars. They both have a similar song meaning of like an alien communicating to humans from a more enlightened perspective, cosmic perspective. And they both, even musically, have this like Starman there's a starman waiting in the sky. It goes like really, and he goes even higher than that during the end of the chorus. And then Life on Mars has is there life on Mars? It goes up to this high note. They both have this thing about going really high, and Purva Falguni has that ambition to try to get somewhere. So you're going to just like give it your all and go up to this high note, so to speak. And the Ascendant and Leo, there's like this confidence, but also this chip on the shoulder feeling to prove yourself, which Ziggy Stardust has. But then at the same time, the mind or the moon sign of Ziggy Stardust is in Maga. And Maga is well, it's the sign of Leo itself, really, in a way. It doubles up this idea of the kingliness of Leo. And so Maga, Moon in Maga means the mind of the song or the album Ziggy Stardust actually has a tremendous amount of confidence attached to it. It's a very like confident album, you know, but it's also very ambitious and trying to achieve something. So it's both. It's both, and which it's fully embodying Leo itself, you could say. And so, yeah, that, and in fact, we could say just from looking at this already that the moon would be the predominator of the chart and it would make the sun the ruler of the chart. So we'll look at the ruler of the chart next, but as the predominator of the chart, and as the predominator of the chart, the moon in Maga means that this album really leads with its confidence. It leads with its sense of ownership over the glam genre, which David Bowie had only just gotten into and discovered because it was a very new genre, you know, the year before, or maybe 2 years before max, because I don't think it existed before then. And so anyway, yeah, so then we go into the ruler of the ascendant and the ruler of the chart by virtue of the moon being the predominator of the chart and in the ascendant in the first house. So the ruler of the whole chart is actually the Sun Mercury conjunction in Mrigasharsha. And, or you could say it's the sun itself, which is in Mrigasharsha, but that close conjunction of Mercury, it gives it this extra ability to communicate what's happening within the heart and soul of the album, which is, so Mrigasharsha is all about collecting beautiful things. And so that's what the album really is. It's a collection of beautiful ideas. I mean, in some sense, what album isn't like that? But, so what is, Mrigasharsha is, the symbol of it is like a deer, and there's this kind of naive wandering through the wilderness looking for some, you know, the mythology behind it is looking for the soma, the nectar of the gods in the forest somewhere. So this album has this searching quality to it that trying to think about how that would relate to it lyrically, but I'm sure if you're familiar with the album, something might come to mind for you. Oh, and I'm sorry, that's not Mercury in conjunction. Mercury is in Ardra, about 10 degrees later or longer than that even. So it's Venus and Sun in conjunction. So the album is very good. It creates very beautiful, yeah, there's a beautiful expression. There's a deep exploration of beautiful things, really, in Mrigasharsha. And I mean, you could really, you could just say that this is just a sign of the album being successful, I guess, at the end of the day. Having the Sun and Venus together in the 11th house in Mrigasharsha means there's going to be a real exploration of beauty that's going to be very successful, because there's a double significance of beauty here between Venus and the Mrigasharsha sign. And Sun, yeah, I mean, Sun is just going to really express from a deep place in the heart, in the soul. And yeah, I'll just leave. Yeah, the Ziggy Stardust one, I feel like I didn't get. This isn't actually an album I've listened to too much over the years. I've listened to it a lot when I first heard it, and then I just stopped and kind of never went back to it, funny enough. So I might just be less familiar with this album to make more connections. So I'll just move on to the next one. But you can definitely see how a lot of these are just good omens and very auspicious for the album itself, with the moon in Maga, and then there's other things I mentioned. But yeah, the album is really known for collecting, and I guess Venus and the Sun in conjunction. I think what it's really saying is there's like an uplifting, you know, a spotlighting and uplifting of the glam genre into a very high aesthetic level that Venus would be showing. So it's like so there's some heart connection with the Sun to these ideas it's discovered of glam, and then Venus is exalting that, basically, in a similar way to Trent Reznor, who, you know, funny enough that, you know, whatever, 20, 30 years later, about 20 years later or so, which is no, 25 years later, I don't know, something like that. But David Bowie would go on tour with Trent Reznor at his Ziggy Stardust moment when he was also just came out with an album where he was also playing a character called the down, the Downward Spiral, where he was playing a character in the album basically, and inspired by David Bowie. And in fact, there's one song on it called "A Warm Place," which even is the entire music for it is almost a cover of this David Bowie song. And the other connection I wanted to make there, though, is how the Downward Spiral was an album that was very much inspired by the industrial genre of the time, of bands like Skinny Puppy and Ministry, except very similar to what Ziggy Stardust did for glam. It's almost like it destroyed the genre by taking it to such an aesthetically elevated place. And Trent Reznor did, the Downward Spiral did the same thing to industrial, where, I mean, there were bands that kind of copied his sound for a few years after that, but none of them were that successful. I mean, except for maybe Stabbing Westward a little bit, but I mean, nowhere near the level that Trent Reznor achieved with making a very a poppier, more mainstream friendly and more elevated aesthetically version of industrial in many ways, and with a wider reaching thing. So it'd be interesting to see Trent Reznor or the chart for that, for the Downward Spiral, because it has such a similar thing going on here. We're here in Ziggy Stardust, we've got that Venus is exalting the thing that's discovered, and Mrigasharsha is all about discovering, and this is the key to the whole chart. So the key to the whole chart is that discovery. And then you also have Mercury in Ardra, which is expressing the conflict, similar to the Life on Mars song. You know, there's a communication and knowledge of the conflict among humans. And then you have Mars and Ketu at the end of Punar Vasu. So there's energy in that cosmic perspective as well. So you have all three of the nakshatras covered in Gemini here. So, all right, let's go to the next album. Should I take a break? Yeah, I think I'll end it there. No, I don't know. Let's see. Can always edit it later. But let's do low. Let's just jump into low. Okay, well, right off the bat, something I noticed that's interesting is the Ascendant is in Bharani. And Low was an album of transformation for him in a different way, where he, wait, I think I got the year wrong on Low. Hold on a sec. Yeah, I got the year wrong on that. It's 1977, right? It's not 1972. Let's see. Let's see. David Bowie. Bowie. Low. Okay, David Bowie Low came out January 14th, 1977. That's what I would have thought it would be. So let's just change that real quick. And actually, I am going to pause and end the video here. Maybe hopefully I'll edit out this part and just start the next one with Low.